Hey guys, I'm always getting asked about my podcast and how do you get to make it, and what tools are you using to get online and get your ideas out there? Well, let me tell you, if you haven't heard about Anchor by Spotify, it's by far the easiest way to make a podcast today. Everything you need is all in one place. Let me explain. Anchor has the tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer. And then hosting, which is kind of actually technically relatively complicated. They do all of that stuff and distribute all that stuff. Guess what? For free. They do all of that. It's Spotify. You'll see your podcast show up on Apple, on Stitcher, all these great platforms. Everything you need to make a podcast in one place. And best of all, did I mention that it's free? So here's how you do it. You go to the Anchor app. Go to the App Store. Just put in Anchor. Or you can go to the anchor.fm and you can get started right away. Thanks to our sponsor, Anchor. Good morning, class. How is it going today? Podcast number 2, Numero dos. It is number 2. Number 1 is in the bag, and now we're on to the second one, and it is going to be, just beautiful. It's going to be a thing of beauty. Getting the podcast going here. I'm just so excited. All right. Well, let's take our song down here. And welcome to our time together. I'm just so excited that we have, some time together, basically. And today it's all about, follow-up, podcast number 2. Last week we had our discussion all about, we talked a lot about honesty and how critical honesty is to being, just really good at your job. It's just such a key part of the work that you're going to do when you're trying to persuade people, when you're going to try to work with them. Trust really is all you have, because at the end of the day, it's really about that kind of connection that you're making to people. And that's really important. So, show number 1, numero uno, is about the most highest thing, I thought, right out of the bag. Honesty is the easiest thing to be clear about. You have to tell the truth and not tell lies. If you tell even a lie, even a small one, you get found out and your credibility is gone. And any chance of that sale goes away. Overpromising is so easy to do, but not being able to deliver, it will never get you more business from that customer. It is one of those few cases where this is so key to working. Some people can make up stories to stretch the truth and whatnot. But man, if you get found out about not telling the truth, your credibility with the customer is gone, and it is very, very hard to ever get that back. So, there you go. There you go. That's going to be the thing that's kind of difficult and hard to work with. So honesty is really important. Now, one of the things that I also talked a little bit about in that podcast was about 2 things, and there's homework. I hope you did your homework and you went and watched. Go on Amazon right now and watch Death of a Salesman with Dustin Hoffman. Go watch it. Arthur Miller, you probably maybe had to read this book in high school because it's considered one of these great pieces of American literature called Death of a Salesman. It was a play that was written in the late 40s, and it's just considered one of the greatest pieces of stage craft ever put together. It's a very simple staging in terms of, the action on the stage, because it's primarily all rhetoric and dialogue, and there's not a lot of action in it. But in that movie, and it subsequently became a movie, and this has been actually done several times. It's Academy Award winning a performance for John Malkovich back in, I think that was made in 85 or something like that. So it was just fantastic. And John Malkovich, who's just a fantastic actor today, was a fantastic actor back then. It had been through many different iterations on stage and Broadway, and it's one of those that's done on shows or on high school plays. And so a lot of American kids read this book, and it's kind of wordy and it's difficult as a book, but as a play, it totally makes sense, because our main protagonist in this, Willie Loman, he goes back and forth in his sanity as he's coming to the end of his career. And I think it's such a emblematic of the challenge and struggle that so many people in sales have, because a lot of times we live in cultures of hope. And so we think, this is going to happen. This deal is going to close. That product is going to solve the needs of that person. And you have to kind of convince yourself of that. And then you get behind that thought and idea. And then you make up stories to try to make that happen. And that is what occurs in this system, in the world that Willie has set up around him with his two boys, Hap and Biff, where, his son, who's kind of a ladies' man, Happy, he's, or his nickname is Hap. He's always telling his family, I'm going to get married soon. And he's never going to get married. He's a ladies' man. He's a little bit of a, kind of always out with the ladies. And he's got many different girls that like him. And so he finds, he gets stuck in that kind of phase in his life where he can't ever settle down. But he knows this is an important value for his family. So he keeps telling them, oh, I'm going to get married someday, Dad. I'm going to get married soon, Mom. And in order to kind of engender, them liking him, and they all do this to each other, back and forth. They mislead each other, not in a way that's destructive. Well, I shouldn't say destructive. They lead themselves down a path that is well intentioned. And that's as they say, there's a phrase, the road to hell is paved with good intentions. And that's really what's going on with when you're kind of in this sales relationship. It's good for the customer. You've convinced yourself that. It's good for your prospective customer. Your product is the best, et cetera, et cetera. And so you have really good intentions. And so it makes it easy for that. And so I recommend that highly, because that is you just have to have this settled in your mind that you are not going to mislead or whatnot. And, this comes from a moral perspective, too. So, maybe you don't have a problem with that morality. And you want to go ahead and mislead. And, when you do that, I just, fair warning, because it catches up to you, and there's only so many partners and prospects out there for you. And if in the world where success is measured by repeat and loyal customers, once you start burning those bridges, you get a reputation, and then it's hard to retain the most valuable asset you have, which is a customer. So that's why it's so important to have integrity in not only your sale and the persuasion that you're trying to get from, if you're filling out that grant application and you're making claims about the productivity of your organization, have the numbers to back it, have the stories to tell the people that have been positively affected by your organization or your nonprofit. So integrity is important. It's interesting because a lot of organizations, that's why they love data, this is kind of an interesting part of this, to make data-driven decisions. So they're always looking to sales applications like, a Salesforce.com or a Microsoft Dynamics application and 365. Please buy that. That's my product. But nonetheless, any one of those systems, that's what a lot of people are trying to get to, is the actual having the data reflected of, success. And so we're not going to count actually on anybody trying to predict or guess, how likely a sale is to happen, and the integrity of a pipeline based on promises that a customer or a prospect told to a salesperson. Then a salesperson wrote it down and put that in the CRM system. And then the sales manager took those numbers and reinterpreted them and, added doubled the number, added 20, and then the finance person that has to submit the sales budget for next year, takes that forecast from the sales manager and he interprets that, and she takes those numbers and reduces them by another 15% or whatever. It's all just lies upon lies, because nobody trusts each other in that whole thing to, how good is the integrity of that number. And so a lot of technologists believe we could actually do a better job at predicting that number than people can, because at the end of the day, if you start looking at the close number, how many of those opportunities actually close, and you look at the capacity of the funnel and watch, the numbers and how long things stay at certain levels, you can basically build a machine learning model off of that data and then start doing predictive analytics. And as you look at the universe of those numbers, as only these large organizations, again, think of Microsoft, being able to understand that the vast ocean of customers' data and millions of records, and seeing how successful those metrics are able to tune that over time and get more accurate over time. So I think it's only a matter of time before we see AI-driven systems that, it's just a matter of time. It's just a matter of time. A lot of people don't like CRM systems, and this isn't all about CRM. We'll have that in a different time frame. But anyways, I think because that's such a core thing, that's kind of the core, that's such a core component of what people want to do. They want to see that integrity in their numbers, that they're reporting up. Anyways, so that's kind of a little bit of a recap from last week. Salespeople, we're all enthusiastic about our products and keen to make sales, and it's tempting to exaggerate or bend the truth a little. So, don't do that. Stop doing that. And it's a tough thing, but especially if you're early on in the business, what you just make a mental note of this, because you're going to have peers and kids and guys and gals that you, kind of your classmates, so to speak, when you get into these sales organizations, peers and things like that, that'll be doing similar work. You can start picking those folks out. Here's the people that are basing their whole thing on, fear, uncertainty, and doubt. And a lot of that fear, uncertainty, and doubt is based on kind of marketing lies and deceit. And they don't last. They don't last. People don't last that long, because they end up not being trusted. So here you go. What I thought in this show that would be just a Jim Dandy thing to do. So that's the recap. Now I would love to go into what I think should be the topic of number 2, which is I have a lot of interviews lined up for this show. And so this is the interview section. But the first person I'm going to interview is myself. So with that said, let's go to the tape, and we're going to interview Pierre Hulsebus. All right, thanks. There you go. This is the interview section of our podcast. And right now we're going to I kind of have a universe of questions that I'd like to ask different folks over time. And let's see how similar responses are. So So I'm just going to ask a bunch of questions, and let's see what kind of answers we get. And so here we go. Why did you choose a career in sales? What was it that got you where you decided, hey, I'm going to do this as a job? Well, thanks for asking, Pierre. What is in the mind of Pierre Hulsebus? Well, let's go. Here we go. Why did I choose a sales career? Well, thanks for asking. It wasn't an easy choice initially, but I did come to the conclusion that I wanted to be involved in business at a certain level. I was always interested in business when I was in high school. I was in junior achievement, actually, when I was a young kid. So at like 16, I was the vice president of finance for my junior achievement company. And when I was a senior in high school, I was the president of my junior achievement company. And for y'all that aren't familiar with JA or junior achievement, it is a nonprofit similar to like Boy Scouts or Girl Scouts or something like that. So it's kind of like that, and it focuses on young people and it helps teach them economics. And so what we did back then was they took a group of us, which was maybe 20 kids, and we had a company that sponsored us, and they sent some mentors to help us organize this, and we built a company literally in 1 year. We started in the fall and raised capital. We sold stock, sold $1 shares of stock. Everybody bought stock. We sold it to our parents, so we raised a couple $1,000s, which was a lot of money back then, and we went out and bought inventory, and we built a production line, and we created a product. And our product was very nice hangers, actually, like hangers that you would put in your closet, but heavy duty hangers. And they were colored. They were anodized gold or silver. And we worked with a large Reynolds aluminum, which is a big company here in Grand Rapids at the time. And we bought our stock from them, and we had these little jigs built so we could bend the rods and make hangers, and then send them out for chrome plating or gold plated, anodized aluminum. And then they came back and we packaged them up really nice, and we sold them to friends and relatives. We had different sales at local stores throughout the year, and it let us basically figure out how to run a company, from everything from production to inventory control to the P&L statement, to paying everybody. Production workers got paid by the piece and how many hangers they made and packed, and everybody got paid. And at the end of the year, we had to liquidate our company, and our $1 stock, we all got paid $1.50. So we turned a 50% growth in 1 year in our company, and so we paid everybody back $1.50. So for every stock. So we did pretty good. So that was. So I always wanted to be in business. I got Inc. magazine actually as a kid, and I was just very fascinated with business and kind of entrepreneurship and being in a company. I was involved in persuasion because I was in debate club and those types of things. Back then they called it forensics, which was giving speeches and like contest as a student to do those types of things. I love that stuff. That was so fun. I didn't really understand at that time because the business club was all girls, and it was primarily how to be a secretary. Because, this is in the 70s, late 70s, early 80s. That's when I was in high school. I did take a banking class. So took a summer class, actually, at the Kent Skills Centers, if you're familiar with that, but basically a high school magnet school. So I did extra work over the summer and went and learned how a bank worked and how to be a teller at a bank and how to process checking and how mortgages worked and all of that kind of stuff. It was actually, I loved that class. I got an A in it. And I also did, believe it or not, here's the irony in in that time of my learning and education. I took a computer class. Actually, also, I went to a trade school there, and it was associated with the high school, again, called the Kent Skills Centers. And those were like, you could take class, you could basically, you would spend half your day there at these classes. And it was just focused on a trade primarily. So you could do mechanics, or a lot of skilled trades were involved in that, heating and cooling and construction and stuff like that. But they did have a whole course around computers and data processing. And I was, of course, fascinated with that kind of stuff. Computers were just, we didn't have personal computers. Nobody had personal computers. They were way too expensive back then. Other than maybe a TRS-80 or something like that, the old Tandy computers or something. But we couldn't afford that. We had no funds to afford that. And so I went to school for that and we had in that class, big IBM mini computer, big mainframe kind of a computer that was donated to the school district. This old, 1960s, literally punch cards were involved, and reel-to-reel tapes were involved in this whole process. So it was not anything like any computer you would have. So it was basically how to become, back then, a computer operator, which was kind of like an IT job that we have today, like a network administrator today. Back then, you would have called that an operator, and you were basically in charge of, doing backups and loading programs and sorting databases. Back then, sorting databases involved taking a stack of cards, punch cards, and, typing into a mechanical keyboard, sort commands I need to alphabetically sort all these cards, or I need to sort them numerically or something. So database reindexing at the time was literally cards that went through a pneumatic machine. Anyways, I'm kind of digressing here, but at the time, that was my beginning of the exploration of wanting to go into business. Now, I hated that class. It was actually a 2-year program. I really did not get it. I did not at the time. It seemed so impractical of what was going on, and I was much more interested in kind of the business side. And this seemed to me like you're basically gonna make me be a secretary here. That it didn't seem there wasn't any sort of business analysis involved in this, or any sort of systems analysis work that was what I really was interested in. This was much more about, how to make sure the power worked inside of the data center. So anyways, and they were as a skill kind of trade model. And so they were basically teaching you to be what back in the day they called a key punch operator, which would be something like literally like before optical character recognition worked. You had an operator that would sit, and the machine would feed checks to that person, and all they needed to do was look at the number, what the person had written in terms of the amount, because you needed to know that down on the bottom of the check, of course, was the account number in a magnetic ink that the computer could read, but it couldn't read, of course, what the amount was. And so somebody had to literally look at that check and on a 10-key pad, just basically type, 106.27, $106.27. You had to type that. And then what it did was it either put that in the micker, that magnetic ink on the bottom, or made holes that were equivalent to key punches so that effectively a computer could read all of that. Anyways, that's a little bit about what I did then during that time. So I was very interested in much more the zen of the business and not basically sitting behind a keyboard. That just got really boring very fast. And so I did bad in that class, and I just wasn't learning very much. And so I quit that. And I had enough credits to graduate. And so anyways, so that's what happened in high school. As I went into college, I really wanted to, I was very interested in production of arts and the audio world, and like running a radio station or a television station. I really liked communications a lot because I really was, again, it was the whole thing that inspired me of journalism and writing and communications, like that was a system, and persuasion became very evident in that. Actually, my favorite class in college as an undergraduate was a graduate level class that I took as a junior, because it was all about political science and communication, and it followed elections. And back then I was really inspired to political science was my minor, and broadcasting and cinematic arts was my major. I quickly understood, though, that in order to make money to make money, i.e. have a family and a normal middle American life, being a DJ was not going to pay the bills for that. I loved that one job. I loved music. I loved the art part of that, and all of the, making commercials and the creative aspect of it. But it was, a lot of the kids that had graduated, that had gone into that part of the business, there wasn't a lot of careers around the mid Grand Rapids area for that particular thing. And I figured out that the only people really making a lot of money, or making a good long-term, was people in sales. And so that was really my aha moment there. My last years in college was, in order to be successful in the broadcasting and cinema market, you're going to have to travel around a lot, and you're going to have to basically get into the business development side of this, which, I wasn't so opposed to. I was a little afraid of doing the travel and being away from my family for so long. So effectively I went and worked in a warehouse after I was done with college, and drove a high-low. And, in your 20s, you just early, I'm in my early 20s, 21, 22, 23 time. And, I still hadn't really figured out that I could be successful in sales. But my aha moment for me was I was working at a warehouse, managing a warehouse that was an off-site automotive company sub-supplier's warehouse, working out there. And then lo and behold, this guy comes in one day, and he's going to install a computer modem, because we have to hook these computers up into General Motors system. And there's a whole, so this is like 1980, this would be 1986, 87, probably 1987 is when this happened. The guy shows up. He comes in from Detroit. It's second shift, so it's like 6 o'clock at night. He comes in, and so it's just me and him in the warehouse, this big giant warehouses. He's hooking this up, and I'm just watching him hook this modem up, fancy schmancy modem. The only modems I had worked had what we referred to as acoustic couplers, was the actual headset of the phone. You literally dialed the number, and then you put that thing down. You see them in the movies. You put that acoustic coupler of the headset into the modem, and you could hear the thing in the background. It kind of sound like that screechy fax machine kind of sound as the two systems synced up over audio. And that's how data transmissions were done back then. And so this guy installed this modem, and he drove up in a Volvo, which is very bougie. He was like, he's in a suit. It's like, okay, you're just installing a modem. I know what that is. I know how that thing works, and I'm just asking him, like, dude, how much do you get paid to do this? How does this work? He drove all the way from Detroit for this modem. And I had heard earlier, because the modem came in, I'm shipping and receiving, so it came in from receiving. So I saw the purchase order for the modem, and it's like $4,000 was this, probably at the time 1200 baud modem, which is, it is even hard for anybody in a modern time to think of how slow that is relative to my 1 gigabit Ethernet, but it's in the thousands of times slower. That's how poor that equipment was compared to what we were doing today. Anyways, I digress. I say that a lot, don't I? I digress. But anyways, I like telling the stories. What can you say? It's just not sad. It's more to tell. It's just more stories to tell. Anyways, so the guy shows up. I got the $4,000 modem in my hand, and I'm asking him, and he comes in his Volvo from Detroit, and it's like, dude, how much are you getting paid for this? Well, like, what's really going on here? And he's like, I got paid $1,200 to do this installation. And it's like, I know literally, because again, I've taken the computer classes. I know all this stuff. And I'm like, you got paid what? It's like, I cannot believe. So for a 3-hour drive over here, you worked on this for like 20 minutes to hook this thing up and to run the program on the computer that set it up. I knew how to run all this stuff. And I'm like, you made what? So this is where I'm like, okay, this is where I need to get into technology sales. I need to get into this is where the money is. This is where the real money is going to show in IT and in selling and in the IT business. So I still have the book. It's called How to Become a Computer Consultant. I literally bought a book called How to Become a Computer Consultant. I looked at my career. I said, I didn't take enough English classes. I need to go back to school and get better at writing because email is going to be an important part of this. I need to take a modern computer programming class. I had laid out literally about 5 things that I needed to do in order to enter that business. So while I was driving the high-low, I decided that this is what I decided. So I went back actually to junior college. These weren't classes I was going to really work on getting credit on or anything like that. So I prepared myself, and I one day decided I'm done. I'm done with this. And a retail company was opening up. Highland Appliances was opening a new store in Grand Rapids. Highland Appliance Store is like a Best Buy kind of a place, and lo and behold, they were going to have computers. They were going to sell computers, and they were starting a computer department. And so I was in. I'm like, I know about computers. I know what they do. I know how to set them up and install them and how to work them and what a batch file is and how a hard drive works and all of this. And I can do this. And so that was my entree into computers in like 1988. And so that's when I chose that career. And I've been on the same career ever since. I've basically been involved in this ever since that time. And so I just worked on getting better and understanding more facets of it. And it's just been an endless, kind of the journey. That's where it started. So I know that was a long story. How did I choose this career? So I chose it. I was very intentional about it, that I wanted to go into this. And I think that's important, actually. I think it's important for everybody to kind of, you may not know exactly what you want to do. You may not know how even to get there, but it's good to have a little bit of a North Star, I think. And then you refine that vision as it goes. As you get in there, you're going to make changes and you're going to readjust and you're going to have success and failures. It's not a linear, your career journey is not linear. It doesn't start at, that's the rare case. Some people have that. They know right from childhood they want to be a doctor. And so, they take all the doctor classes and the health classes in high school and the math classes, and then their undergrad is that, and then they get their, they pass their MCATs and they get into medical school. I mean, they're super focused around that. And I applaud people that have that. I just have a curious mind that goes down lots of different paths. I have to try to open every door, I guess. Anyways, so that kind of gets to the second question. Pierre, let me ask you your second question of the day. And this is a question I'll ask a lot of folks is, what do you like most about sales? What do you like most about that sales? Well, let me tell you what. Thank you for asking, Pierre. Thank you very much. What do I like most about sales? Well, my favorite things is there's a bunch of things that I like about it. One is that it's a learning environment. I've learned this about myself and many of the people that I work with. There's two different types of people in selling. For me, it is the motivation of learning. That's why I'm in technology sales. It gives me an excuse to spend hours reading blog articles and watching YouTube videos and trying new gadgets and failing and going, this doesn't work and that works, because then I can have an informed, point of view, and I can become an expert in what I'm talking about by doing my research. And so a lot of the stuff, that's why I love technology sales, is that that's what I like about it most, that it's a learning kind of mindset. And, so for a lot of folks, that is not the reason they get into sales. They get into sales because they want to make a lot of money. They want to make $1 million. And it's a bit of a puzzle that they're trying to solve in terms of how to get from point A to point B. And so for them, it's the pursuit of that goal, of attaining the goal. And it's like a sports person's mindset, like somebody who wants to be a champion in a sport. So they're going to do everything that they can do to personally get themselves prepared and get their team together and learn the right plays and say the right things and organize all the right kind of things that you have to do to win. And so for some people, it's about winning. And that's also a good thing. That's a good thing. That's a good thing. If you're competitive and you don't want to like losing, sales may be for you. But I really like to, that's the thing that gets me up in the morning. And that's the secret actually, is to any career, obviously, is that, you have to really enjoy, that, because you have to be passionate about it enough to kind of put up with all the crappy stuff, because it's not all great. There is crappy stuff. But if you go into a college class of 500 people and start talking about careers in sales, people tend to tune you out a lot. They don't really think, hey, I want to be in sales. I mean, literally, I do teach a class or help teach a class and do some guest lecturing around advanced selling at a university, at Ferris State University. And and so when you look at that, it's, there's kids that are in those classes that are basically checking the box because it's on the curriculum for their degree to be in sales and marketing or business development. But then there's a couple in every one of those cadres. They maybe graduate 50 kids a year out of that program, and kind of keeping track of them after they graduate through LinkedIn and stuff like that. A few of them are just real winners in the sense like they get their second and third jobs and they just are growing in their careers, and you can see their development. And it's because they have a passion for it. They like the challenge. It is a complicated job. I will say this too, depending on the course, the organization, and kind of what you're trying to do. But it's relatively complex in the sense of what you choose, I guess, from an industry standpoint. I guess I wouldn't say it's complicated. That's probably not the right way to put it. It is a job, I guess, that's like playing football, or if you use a sports analogy, where there's a lot of different variables that come into winning. And it's everything from diet, if you think of like, what are the ingredients of a champion athlete that's trying to be a world class or be successful. It is not just one thing that they do, that one activity of kicking the ball or passing or whatever. It's a multi-dimensional discipline. And so it's how you speak, how you present yourself. Those are important. But it's also the product knowledge that you bring. It's listening. It's persuasion. Like, there's so many different variables. It's picking the right product to sell. It's picking the right company to be, understanding all of the dimensions of the prospect's buying process of how they, so there's just, this is why I'm saying it's very interesting, because, sales has that aspect to it. And I think that's when you talk to people that love the winning part, that's what they're mastering. They're working through all those little details of, what is their dialogue that they're going to use, and how do I overcome objections, and, that complicated part. So anyways, this is really an interesting people. Like, despite what happens, there is, in terms of what sales people think, or young people think they want to get into, sales actually is one of the highest, most in-demand careers right now, and will continue to be for a long time. It's always shows up as one of the best long-term kind of careers, and there's a belief commonly that there's not going to be enough people in that field. And there's no other career really that offers an income potential other than sales. I mean, top performers in industry, it's not uncommon for people that I work with to make over $500K a year, in that career. Again, I work for one of the largest software companies in the world. So, we have folks in our organization that, we sell multi-million-dollar, engagements. It's not uncommon for my team to get involved in engagements that are north of $100 million by the time we're done with installation and software and training. So folks can make a pretty good penny on that. And so that's the other part, top performers, and that's obviously a lot of the drive that people have is to try to get to that, upper echelon in their field and to be successful. So that's why a lot of people don't initially think about sales, but once they kind of get into the universe of the business world, you start to see how important sales is. And if you're attracted to that kind of variability, it can be a good career. Okay. Next question, Pierre. What could I have done better to be better prepared when entering a career in sales? Well, thank you for asking, Pierre. What is in the mind of Pierre? Being prepared obviously is really important, but some people read books, and I'm not going to give you the answer that you think. There's a lot of motivation that goes into selling and to being in the art of persuasion. There's a lot of personal motivation a lot of people use. They look at people like myself that could be a measure of success to say, well, I want to just emulate that person. And when you look at social media, especially social media does a horrible job of this, making it seem like somebody has it all together and that you had a plan in place. And if you emulate this model of getting up at 5 o'clock and having the side hustles and, doing all of this work, and just hustle, then if you follow these patterns that people have in their books and buy their books and go to their seminars, then you're going to be successful. And, that in some instances, there's some truth to this. There's some truth to that particular part, but it is hard to be completely prepared, using that model. You only see, let's say, the positive side. You don't see the downside. I had kids later in life, and so as my kids grew into maturity, what they were seeing was me more at the top of my career, as they were starting to consider their work and what they were doing. They missed out all those years in the mid-90s when I'm trying to learn all of not only being sales successful, but all the crappy, certifications and learning Cisco and trying all these other different technologies and, being successful and not successful in different endeavors that you started and failed at doing. And so, the preparation is having that growth mindset and that openness. And I think that was the part, I'm generally a positive person. And so I think it takes that. So it's hard to kind of be prepared for that because you can take all the classes and methodology classes that you want. But as they say about war, plans never survive first contact with the enemy. And they would always say, your plans, you have your plans, but the enemy has their plans too. And so when you get out into the battlefield of selling and kind of in the trenches and kind of the daily fight to do well, there's other forces that are competing against you, and it's hard to have planning for that. You keep focusing on your stuff, not understanding maybe the product or the market that you're in. There are other factors that we'll talk about, in other shows, but there's a lot of other factors that go in that are outside of your control that you have to be aware of, the timing of products. So you could be the greatest salesman in the world, but have a sucky product, or you could have the greatest product and a good salesperson, but the market is not ready for that. It's either too early or there's way too much competition in the market, and your marketing efforts in that are not good enough to be successful. So there's a lot of other factors that go in. So you can be as prepared as you want, but there's other factors that go in there. But I guess directly you're asking what could have been done to be better prepared when entering a sales career. I don't know. Had more money in my savings account in the first couple of years. I don't know. Did the companies you worked for have a formal sales training program? Did they have a sales training program, Pierre? Why, thank you, Pierre. Yes, they did. Most every company worth their salt is going to have some level of sales training. And the reason that is, and again, you look at those as almost like training wheels. So even a college student coming into a big company, you're going to have to learn the methodology of the company that is being done, of the product you're selling or whatever. So there's always going to be some sort of sales training program, and you have to take all of that and make it your own. But pretty much everyone, past, let's say 1995, every company that I've worked for has had a formal sales training program. It doesn't even, always give you that 100% confidence in it, but it gives you a framework to start with. And, you had broader onboarding programs that lasted sometimes weeks. Ongoing training is provided and should be done. But a big thing, is really you own that yourself. It is your tool. If you're going to become, work to become a persuasive person, you need to own that. It's not just the company's responsibility to train you. It is your responsibility to be ready to be trained, to be in the mindset of being trained, and have the discipline and kind of openness to be open to the coaching that's going to happen as a result of that, to be successful in those organizations. And, so part of it's a mindset, too. Back in the day, for me, we didn't have computers. We didn't start out using CRM systems and computers. So when all that stuff started hitting the sales tech and technology started hitting the sales organizations, I'm buying a computer then. I'm buying my own computer. The company didn't buy me a computer. My first computers were bought by me. They're thousands of dollars at the time I had to spend in order to get those resources. I'm spending hundreds of dollars a year on your planner, your basic thing. Before you had computers and email, you kept track and phone logs in paper, and you kept track of all of this in what we call the day timer or a Franklin planner. And the Franklin planners cost, several $100s a year, and you're buying those yourselves and investing in that. And so that kind of mindset of, I own this. This is my investment in myself to be, to come off as a more persuasive person or be better at what I'm doing. That's where a lot of that kind of motivational kind of models come from, where you own this. You own this, because that's a skill you get to move on as your career moves, and maybe you move to a different role or a different company. You take that with you. That's a portable skill. And so it really is an investment in you. And, look to my training budget this year. I've done over 150 hours of training, almost a month's worth of, more than a month's completely worth of time on the clock, at least on the clock, for Microsoft. Mostly all computer or all sales training and kind of persuasion training and workplace kind of things. So yeah, it's, you're committing. So I would say, if you look at your time budget, I just take 10 hours a month, a day, a month at least to do that. Most professions, like a CPA or any licensed professional, they have what they call CPE credit. They have ongoing requirements for their licensing. Teachers have the same thing, where they have those in-service days to just kind of sharpen the saw and get better and get out of the field and get behind a book and get with some peers. And so, get committed to those kind of things. It all helps. It all does help. It's not 100% effective. If I go to a class and invest time, am I always going to get that back in terms of productivity right away? Not always. Might be redundant to stuff you already know, or be conflicting information to things you already understood, but it can be very well worth it. And so you always try to come away with something. So anyways, I got a couple more things. What have you learned what are some of the things you learned from your career in sales? Well, first one, and we opened this podcast talking about honesty and how awesome honesty is with people, and why, they should be honest with you bring honesty to the table. And, but guess what? Buyers are liars. So my story last week of telling you about how, we got involved in a sales opportunity, but the customer was never interested actually in our stuff. They were only interested in getting our price so they could use it to beat up their real intended customer, or the real intended product that they could say. So they could say, hey, these guys gave us they came in here and their stuff is so great. And we think your stuff is, it's good, but their stuff is really good too. And they're giving us a price, this giant discount to earn our business. So instead of renewing with you guys, we think we're just going to go with them. And so sorry. And so that company is, all they have then at that point is the ability to reduce their price. And so that customer played the game perfectly. They had no intention of buying from Microsoft. From the company that I work for. They had no intention maybe of just getting educated maybe about features of products that were in the marketplace, but they were not honest. But I learned this right at the very beginning, that because I said, again, I'm an honest person. I try to be very honest. So I assume good intentions in people that I'm talking to, my colleagues, and especially the people that I'm sitting across the table from. But at a certain point, sometimes buyers don't actually tell you the truth. They deceive you. They don't, because they just inherently don't maybe trust you or whatever reason, but they're not respectful of that. And so it sounds harsh, but when it's that time and it's time to close a deal, that you can't just take all their answers as facts. You need to have the appropriate questions and the facts ready that you've gathered from previous conversations to get the results that you're looking for when it comes time to closing, because they will not remember, they will miss their deadlines, and things are not going to always be in order, and you need to be aware of those red flags. And I've learned to have this dialogue with myself over basically I have two minds. Literally, this is the only way I can do this, because I hate this part of interacting with people, to be skeptical. I don't want to be skeptical. I want to believe what they say. And so, but I also have another part of my mind that says, all right, I'm going to be the cynical salesperson, and I'm going to listen to what they say, and I'm going to just look at it from that viewpoint also. And so I literally, it's like two people, in my head, and sometimes on my paper when I'm starting to kind of score things and come up with strategies. You basically, you want people on your team, especially if you have a team. This is awesome, to bring your sales manager in and have that sales manager, seasoned, grizzled, I don't give a darn attitude, willing to walk away from a deal, so to speak, because we spent way too much time on this and we're probably not winning anyway. So they're already negative and looking at that customer or that prospective customer in a negative way. So taking that perspective and kind of blending the two together has been very successful. But yeah, I've learned some stuff, and that's one of them, that buyers don't always tell you the truth. And you can try to be as honest as you can, but that's not their value. They want to sometimes get the best deal that they can get, and they're just using you. Or you just fall into the trap of, I've heard it called happy ears. You kind of hear what you want to hear, and you don't kind of question. You don't kind of question. So you only hear the good side of it. And again, this goes back to that death of a salesman, where basically the systems are often set up in a dynamic and a hierarchical structure where people demand certain outcomes, and then so you say whatever you have to do to get that outcome. So that's what ends up happening, and the buyers have the same thing. A common strategy in corporate America is, let's say I am competing against another company, another big company, Acme. We'll just call it Acme. Or how about this? Let's imagine I worked for Oracle, and I'm a salesperson for Oracle. And then I'm in a competitive deal against SAP. So it's SAP and Oracle. And so you're going to do a proof of concept to show, hey, this really works for you. And the SAP team is also going to do the work for you. And so what happens is internally at the customer, there's an SAP kind of team and there's an Oracle team. And everybody that's working on the Oracle team from the customer's view, their career is based on Oracle. That's what they do. They want the company to do Oracle. And then there's an equally passionate group that is on SAP, and they're saying the same thing. And they're basically got their careers wrapped up in SAP. And so if the company doesn't buy SAP, they're out of a job. And for the SAP and the Oracle team, they're out of a job. So if you're a salesperson in that, and you're only talking to the SAP team and you're the SAP salesperson, you have happy ears, because everybody's, oh, this is great. You guys are spot on. This is exactly what we need, because the customer, their interest is in your software alone, but they don't have the right. That group doesn't have the right just to sign the check. Somebody else has to sign the check. There's a committee involved. Anyways, buyers sometimes are not completely honest, and we've got to, put some perspective on what they're saying and committing to. The other one is we'll go through this, but this is this is on the universal truth, on the universal truth. For me, buyers are liars. And the other one is you cannot close a stall. And what that really means is, if the sale, we often will lose to no decision. A customer is often trying to make a decision when the prospect is there. They need to think about it, and they're going to get back to us, and they're called a be back if you're in retail. I'll be back. But I know myself, when I'm a prospect for looking for something, I'm going to spend a lot of time in doing my research. I'm going out to the stores, and when I interact with a salesperson, that is what I'm going to say. I'm going to be back. I'm not usually going to get pressured by them because I'm researching. And so you're kind of kicking the tires and thinking about it and trying to imagine it. And so having that alignment with the customer's buying process is what's really important for us, is that I do want to help that person out. If they're in that mode of learning and trying to understand it, that means that's one conversation. If they're like, okay, we're ready to get budget pricing and we need the numbers and we're starting the project next month, and that's a totally different conversation. So lining up with the customer's buying process to get agreement on the process that you're all going to go through, like you're making this investment, they're making an investment of time. You got this kind of dialogue then going around. We're agreeing to the terms of our engagement as we get to the close. So you've kind of laid that out. And some of the sales methodologies really focus on those types of selling models. And as a salesperson, I'm looking also for ways to defer low probability sales. So if somebody's just in the I'm thinking about it stage, they're not really a legit prospect yet. They're not legit yet. So I need to figure out ways to help inform them of the product and the positioning of the market and the theories behind the products and all of this. But I'm not going to, make a giant investment until they come back and go, all right, we're ready to engage in a deeper conversation until that buying signal happens or a trial close happens. So you can't, because if they're not ready, they're not ready, and you can't close that. And so you have to be really, really, thinking about that, I guess, might be the right way to term it. All right. So, what else is on the agenda here? Oh, I know we're almost at time. Wow. All right. So those are two immutable truths. What other, I got, that's it. Some things you learn from sales in your career. So those are the different things. Those are two big ones. You're going to hopefully hear a lot more about those. So those are good advice, like buyers are liars and you can't close a stall. Here's the worst advice. So I am going to institute a brand new thing. We're going to call it let's put a name to this here. We are going to call this, all right, the rhombus of failure. So you have in my office, I have the pyramid of success, the pyramid of greatness, the Ron Swanson pyramid of greatness. I'm going to add there's 9 different categories that he has in there, starting with honor. Category number 2 is blank. Category number 3 includes weapons, working with wood, and warfare avoidance. Category number 4, greatness, haircuts, selfishness, and teamwork. A lot of great advice in there. He goes all the way down to category 9. So I'm going to add category 10, which are Pierre's words of wisdom. And so one of the first words of wisdom, like this is something that I have learned recently, and this goes into universal truth number 1. You always wear pants. Because, standing up during a video conference cannot be avoided. You might have to stand up. So, along with that, goes, the worst advice. And so the worst advice does not make it to the pyramid of greatness. What makes it to the worst advice goes to what we're going to refer to as the Pierre Hulsebus rhombus of failure. These are bad advice that is not going to get you what you want. And this is advice that you see that is like on cards and on like motivational posters and things like this. And this is just bad advice overall. And you're going to find me to be a little iconoclastic in some of this. Like, I don't like a lot of that universal kind of, motivation, because I'm always a bit of a challenger. And even these kind of universal truths. And so one of the worst ones is, the only limit is you. You are the only limit. So, obviously the implication is, if you kind of straighten your head out, then you're unlimited in your abilities and your capabilities. So really the distance between success and failure in your sales career involves just you and you alone. If you fix yourself by buying my books, by making that call, by calling in right now as operators are standing by, if you pay the $1,400 and attend my seminar, we are going to fix you. So once we do that, you will be so much better at selling. Success is just going to, the prospects will just be saying yes, and your close rate's going to go up. Well, I'm just telling you that's not true. There's a lot of other limits inside of, because, sales is a whole dance. It's a whole dance, and you're just the end part of the whole process. Usually sales is, you had to bring, marketing had to set the message. Someone had to build a product. A service department had to, build loyal customers, and you're just there to kind of take care of the customer in the next go around. And so those other factors actually limit your success. So it's not just about you. It's also picking a career and picking a company and a team and a sales manager and a product direction that works. And when you do those other parts, that's when you can see success. So that's on the rhombus of failure. Your only limit is you. So anyways, so we're gonna end with that one on the rhombus of failure. Every week, I'm going to have a rhombus of failure, a new one. So there you go. And we're gonna talk a couple things. I'm gonna wrap the show up here in a second. So thanks. That's the interview section, and let's break. All right, and so we're coming to the end here of our time together today. It's the top of the hour, and so in interest of being concise and on point and trying to keep my promise to you, trying to keep this to an hour, we're going to close out today. But what I wanted to do before I did that was to direct your attention to my website. So this is a joint venture between my podcast and our website that I put together that hopefully as a little community that we're pulling together here, I wanted to introduce you to the website that kind of pulls this together for you, my consumer, my customer today. So it is... it's a very simple website to find. It is called Hustle is the Hack. And so Hustle is the Hack. My name is Hulsebus, so a lot of people called me Hustle. So Hulsebus and Hustle is the Hack. So there's a little bit of a artistic alliteration there. But anyways, that's the website that you're going to go and find all my stuff. So, of course, I'm on LinkedIn and Twitter and Facebook and all that stuff. You can find me there too. But we're trying to start up something on YouTube too, because some of this content has a little bit a little bit of let's say video is maybe a better way to experience some of this observational insight that we're giving you. So with that said, you go to the website, Hustle is the Hack. And let me just give you just a 1 second reason why hustle. What is the hustle about? So that is, really want to, kind of step back and look at the founding ideas that I had, things that were important to me, what I saw modeled in my parents. They both, my dad was a blue collar man. He's a blue collar worker. My dad was a teamster and worked a lot of different jobs. He was a union guy, so he was in unions and did assembly. He was a welder. He worked in factories and had a lot of different jobs. Later on in his career, became a supervisor for warehousing. He got into warehousing and warehouse management but ended his job as a truck driver, ended his career as a truck driver. Anyways, so, what you saw is somebody basically that always told me, if you always want to have more work to do than you can do. And so that's the reason why we're up at 2:30 in the morning doing a podcast, is because I just can't help myself. Hustle is really the secret. And it's what you're going to find, a reoccurring theme in everything that Pierre says. We're going to point you to some resources and different books and different resources. We talked about training and kind of sharpening the saw type of models. So that's true. But I really believe a lot of that is good stuff and good information for you. But ultimately, you have to internalize everything that you learned and make it your own. And you want to bring your own unique, kind of style and flair. You are not just a clone of somebody successful. So you can't just look at Gary V's life as an entrepreneur and go, okay, I just got to do what he does. If I can just encapsulate from, the 15 things that are important for him. And we're always trying to oversimplify what actually is a very difficult thing, so the success in this career and in jobs as a whole does not come from just emulating somebody else. Nobody playing basketball could emulate or just be Magic Johnson. No tennis player can be Serena Williams. She had to be her own person. She came up with her own style and her own abilities, and it took practice and hard work. She just didn't follow the model that Chrissy Everett, had. So if you're coming up behind somebody, it's, you can definitely walk in other people's footsteps and honor their careers and listen and take advice from folks that have gone before you. But, your goal is going to be different than their goal is. And it's not always the path everybody has is the same. Anyways, with all that said, that's why hustle is really the secret. It's just getting out there and doing the work and just committing to the process of learning and transforming yourself into that person that you need to be successful. And it's not about just, finding the 15 secrets, some checklist or something like that. It's not about getting up at 5 a.m. Some people are more creative at night. So, it's not about that. It's not about that. It's about you doing you. And that's what we want. That's what you want to do, that you bring a unique style and perspective. And as we were saying last week, you're a possibility. Your unrealized potential is there to be realized, and that is the goal. It's not just to realize the potential of somebody else and just follow their ways. Anyways, so that's where the concept of hustle being the hack. So that the real hack, because I'm on IT, hackers. The hack is always, when you say, I hacked this, it's always like, oh, I found a shortcut or a way around a system to, kind of accelerate and fix a problem or something like that. We're always looking in my business for workarounds. So something is programmed a certain way, and instead of rewriting the program, what you do is you figure out a workaround, a hack that says, oh, I can get the same behavior out of the system or a different behavior if I do this little workaround. And so our business is full of hacks. And so we're always looking for, these kind of shortcuts, so to speak, in careers. And there is no shortcut, quite frankly, in anybody's career. So you need to do the work. And that's all it is. That's all it is. And once you commit yourself to that, you're going to do well. So, anyways, so that's the hustle is the hack. That is the website, the landing page for all this awesomeness. What you want to do is when you go there, you're going to see a couple things. One is, of course, all the links of the podcast, as they get published. And now, this one will be number 2. So that'll show up there in a couple days. And you can also just, of course, see us on all of the great places now, Spotify and Google Cast and a bunch of different places. And so you can go out there and on your latest and greatest podcast feed, you're going to find us. Obviously, if you're listening to this, you found it. Anyways, over on the right-hand side of that podcast page is the show notes. You can click on that OneNote icon. It has an N, and you can click on that, and guess what? It opens up OneNote. And those are my show notes. That's actually the planning that I'm doing for the next event or the next episodes. And this is has links to all the different components of different things that we talk about. I talked today about the universal truths. And so you'll see all the different universal truths in there. We talked about the pyramid of greatness. And so the John Wooden pyramid of success, or the Ron Swanson pyramid of greatness, with all of its categories, and the Pierre's universal truths, which is category number 10. And then you'll see so you'll see all that stuff in there. Pretty cool. Some what I call the 5, which is like what are the top 5 things on your mind right now. So that usually goes in there. And you'll see more. You'll see more and more. I'm going to put more and more in there where we're at and whatnot. So that's there. There are two things, though, that are dynamic content on this website that you will love. If you're in technology, if you're interested in the Microsoft and technology and sales space, well, guess what? I have a little newspaper or newsfeed that I curate every day. This is what I read every day to keep up on what is going on in my business. And so this and Wall Street Journal does it typically for me in terms of keeping me informed of my industry. And so that is there, called Dynamics Daily or Everyday Dynamics. It's a curated page, and you can actually subscribe to that, and it would send it to you every day. It's updated every day. And then another thing called the Stack of Stuff. The Stack of Stuff is a link of web pages that I am curating throughout the week. And this is just an ongoing collections of links out to relevant for you as a listener to this podcast. Different things that are on the top of my mind. I will be spending a little half an hour episode, probably weekly, just going over the Stack of Stuff and why I'm putting that up there, because some of it requires a little bit of interpretation, or kind of what's PR spin, why is this interesting, and so I'll be referring to the Stack of Stuff all the time. So this is just links out to articles and things on that order, and you can get that just by going to the Stack of Stuff /Hustle's the Hack /Wake. It's called Wake because it's a little product that I use called Wakelet, which keep track of all of my. Anyways, we'll talk about that later. But anyways, that's the show. We're coming to the conclusion of this show. I'm sorry I'm a little late on this, but I hope you just have an awesome day. Last week I said it, and I'm going to say it again. You're a promise. You're a possibility. You were known before you were born. And you have a purpose and a plan. Now it's just figuring it out and walking it out and working on it. And that's what it really takes here. So I said it last week. I'll say it again. You are a promise. And with that, we're just going to close the day out. You have a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful day. I wish you well, and I'll talk to you soon.